So, alright, so this is going to be part 4 to what if Deku had the powers of Danny Phantom. So, in the last part, we ended off with the USJ attack, and Deku had used his quirk, to get everyone intangible and kind of escorted them outside the USJ, and that's when they're calling in the pros. So they would have one of the teachers, either Aizawa or 13, to actually call the school, right? And I think at this point in time, All Might would not be at the school because he was actually, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure he would be at the school by then. So the principal Nezu would get the message, and he would get all the teachers, and get them there. And then All Might would arrive first because he's the fastest, and then the rest of the heroes would join soon after. So what they do, or they asked, how'd you get out here? How'd you know the villains were gonna come? And 13 explains that through the use of Deku's quirk, they were able to become intangible and invisible, and they were actually able to escape that way. And this is when All Might gets an idea, right? I don't know if I said this before, but I think Deku would have all for one, or not one for all, I believe. And I think I might have skipped that detail, but he has it in this version. So what happens is that All Might asks Midoriya if he could use these quirks to get like a sneak attack. So what he does is he takes the teachers and actually uses his quirk to place them within the USJ in different strategic locations, so that they could strike the enemies, like almost like a pincer attack, if you know what that means, to get them in a position where they're not able to escape and they're basically surrounded. So he does this, and the person who initiates the fight is actually Snipe, which is the hero who looks like a cowboy with like a gas mask on. So he shoots Shigaraki, as he does in the same way as he does in the anime, and this causes Shigaraki to freak out, and he basically tells he asks Kataguri, I think that's his name, the teleporting villain. He basically tells him to retreat because he's badly injured and he doesn't want to lose the Nomu. So this is kind of anticlimactic because because of this sneak attack, there's not like a big fight, but there are like other villains there because no one was they were left behind, right? So I think that it'd be up to the pros to actually fight off all the villains and kind of surround them and take them down. So we don't really get a fight with any of the students in this version because Deku was basically able to avoid that scenario, if that makes sense. So after this, we would, the media wouldn't really find out about this because, or they would find out about this because it's not like they were keeping it secret, but they would actually commend the heroes or the teachers because they were able to get so many villains without even having the students to fight. So I think UA would get praised for this. So I think that there wouldn't be so much backlash, and like later on the parents wouldn't have a problem with the dorms. So let's get back on track, and we get to the point where Aizawa tells the students that in a few weeks they're gonna have the sports festival. So everyone's pretty excited because it's a time that, that lets people show off their quirk. And, you know, Deku at this point, he knows he has a big advantage because of his intangibility, but he wants to challenge himself and not really use it. And, I'm actually using that as an excuse not to have him do that, because if he did that, he'd win. Like he would like instantly win. So he decides to train and try to, use his other abilities to try to like, get a better grasp on everything. So I think you are she we get pretty excited because it's a competition about quirks, and seeing he wants to show off that he wants to be like a great hero. So I think he would train with Deku since they're great friends and they have similar mindsets. So in these 2 weeks, I think that Deku would actually learn a new ability, and that would be his ghost shield. Like, I'm not making this up. This is like an actual power. I went back to the wiki to check out other powers that he would have, and this is one of the powers that he gets. He basically, it's like the same way that he would shoot like a ghost ray, he's actually able to make like a shield out of it, and he's able to reflect things, other like ghost rays. So I don't know, they wouldn't really work on like normal projectiles unless it was like a laser. So I think Yuarashi would also come up with a new attack. It would basically be like a super condensed like bubble of air. Like, if you ever seen like JoJo with a stray cat? I think that's what the character is called. It's a cat that turns into that was turned into a plant, and its ability is that it could shoot really powerful bubbles of air. So I would think it'd be something similar. So it's almost like bullets, basically. So at the same time, I think Deku would try to use One for All, but not in his ghost form, so he could get a better handle of it and not actually, break anything. Because I think he would try to go slowly at first, because he didn't have that scenario in canon where he had to use 100% to save Uraraka or Ochako, I mean, whichever. So we get to the point where everyone's in that changing room. The entire class is there, and Yuarashi's really pumped, right, to like see who's gonna win, and he's like telling everyone to do their best. And Uraraka, given her backstory, would also agree with this, and they would celebrate or cheer everyone else on. And then this is when Todoroki goes up to Deku and tells him, like, you might be good at hiding, but I think I have the upper hand when it comes to raw power, and I'm going to beat you. And Deku, I think growing up, he would be more of a quiet kid and more introverted due to the nature of his quirk and how he's able to like turn invisible and stuff like that. So he doesn't really know what to say. He's used to like Bakugo telling him stuff, but not like other people. So he's taken back by this, and he says, I don't know what you mean by that, but I'm not gonna lose, or something to that degree, because I think Yuarashi would have somewhat of a influence on Deku due to the time that they spent together. And Yuarashi's like looking at this, and he sees no joy in Todoroki when he says this, so he gets angry because the fact that like he doesn't see him like in a heroic light, because he basically sees him as Endeavor because of the way that they both have those like similar eyes. So he gets mad and straight up walks up to him and says, "You're not gonna even get second place. I'm gonna make sure that you're knocked out early." So that's what he does, or that's what he says. So we get to the point where everyone's, going through and walking up to the podium that's in the middle of the field. And I think the class representative would not be Bakugo. I think it would be Deku, since I think he would break records when it comes to the recommendation test. You know how fast he is and the other abilities, plus what he did with the USJ. So I think he'd be the class representative. And Deku would basically tell like an inspiring speech. He says, "We're all here to show our best, and we're gonna play, or we're gonna fight our best and try to impress everyone." That's basically what he says, and he gives everyone good luck, and people cheer, and right. So when we get to the basic the race, right, the obstacle course, I think it'd be crowded. Deku challenging himself would not use his like not intangibility. He would just fly over everyone, because it's his power, and so would people like Yuarashi, since he controls wind. And the rest of Class 1A would also follow suit. Yuarashi would get, it'd be neck and neck against Deku and Yuarashi, but since Yuarashi's like moving the wind, and that wind's going towards Deku, actually slows him down a bit because of wind resistance. So what Deku does is he, makes his legs form again and goes onto the ground and uses like 100%, into his legs to actually leap forward, and then he goes back into his flying form, so he gets more momentum to try to pass Yuarashi. But this is when Yuarashi like condenses his air even further to make it go even faster. So both of them are coming up to the finish line pretty fast, and they skip the bombs. But we could say that the shockwave actually after, I think they would create like a sonic boom, I would say, near the bombs or the landmines, and this would actually cause them to explode behind them. And I think it'd be a tie when it comes to who would get first place. And the rest of class, the other classes and students, I think it would come in the same order. Like they say they tied because any equipment there that could have taken a picture of who came first was probably destroyed. So that it's a tied team. It's a tie. So both of them in the cavalry battle both have that like big score around their head. I forgot the exact number, but for the teams, I think it would be Deku, and then Uraraka, and then maybe Momo, because they know each other from the recommendation, and she knows that both Yuarashi and Deku are very powerful and gives her the best chance to move on. But at the same time, Yuarashi's kind of too much for her, since his personality is kind of like too overbearing. So I think she would go to his team, and I guess Tokoyami would be on their team, because Deku's looking like he's doing like a kind of strategic move, and for Yuarashi's team, I think he would pick either, what's his name, Kiroshima. Yeah, because I think their personalities would match pretty well, and I think he would also pick. This is hard. I'm not sure exactly. Maybe Suyu, I believe her name is. And let's see, we need a third one. And then let's just say Ida. Right, so those two teams are. And then the rest are just. They don't really matter. It still goes the same way as the anime, where the other teams are, fighting each other. But between Yuarashi and Deku, they're like ready to fight each other because they're the only people that could fly and actually go against each other. So when the timer actually starts, instead of going for Deku directly, Yuarashi would actually go for Todoroki, because he's trying to make good on his promise from before. And since Todoroki doesn't have Ida, he doesn't have that speed. I think he would have Shin. What's his name? The person with multiple arms. I forgot his name. I think he would also have. Let's see who else. I think Mina. I think her name is the one with the acid, and then Zero, the one with the tape. So, they would use a combination of Zero and Mina's acid to try to like get around faster. But I think Yuarashi's wind power will be faster combined with Ida's speed and Froppy's or Suryu's agility. And Todoroki would make ice. And what Yuarashi would do is he would do that condensed air bullets. I forgot. I don't know like a name for this ability. So if you guys have an idea, then comment down below and I'll take that suggestion. So as he's creating these like ice like pillars and stuff to block it, he's basically like shooting them down. And Todoroki's like taken back by this. He didn't think someone could hold this grudge and go like be so aggressive towards him. So they're getting closer and closer, and Todoroki makes one final like ice in front of him, like the biggest that he could make. And what happens is, basically Yuarashi himself makes himself like a bullet with his team. He basically combines Ida's reciprocal burst with his own speed and makes kind of like a cyclone, a horizontal cyclone to actually burst through the side. And he actually sees he faces Todoroki like face to face, and he actually says, "Why don't you use your fire side?" And as he says this, he actually takes his headband and actually, after he's done this, there's only like a few minutes left. So after he does this, he goes after Deku, and Deku's still in the air since he doesn't really want to fight anyone, and he just wants to make this easy. So he's like grabbing onto everyone, and Yuarashi's actually coming straight for him, because he wants to have that rivalry with Deku. But what happens here is that Deku is trying to like kind of weaving around, and it's like kind of confusing Yuarashi because his movements are kind of erratical, and the combination of Black Shadow trying to block every attack, and I think Momo would also create objects like flashbangs and things of that nature to kind of like blind Yuarashi. And this is the point where Yuarashi would talk to directly to Deku and says, why are you holding back? How come you're not doing anything? And Deku's like, yeah, you're right. And this is when Deku actually does his void ability. If you don't know what that is, you can check my last part where I kind of describe it. Basically, it's a power that makes everything dark by absorbing the light nearby. So this is what he does. He absorbs all the light nearby, and basically everyone's blind except for, I would say Tokiyami and Deku. And this is actually what gives Tokiyami's dark shadow like a big power boost. So it's like it's even more powerful. It's powerful at night, but this is even more powerful than that. And I think it would basically, he would use it as like a giant shield, and when all the light comes back, you would just see like dark shadow covering the entire like team. And this is when Yuarashi actually tries to do his move that he did before. That combination that he did with everyone. But I would say right before he actually makes impact, this is when Deku actually, or not Deku, this is when the timer runs out. So first place it would be Yuarashi, second place Deku, third place Bakugo, fourth it'd be Shinso, I think his name is, the person with the mind control. I think Todoroki wouldn't be able to come back because he would be he would lose the will to fight because of how he lost and like how he was so cocky before. So his team would be like, snap out of it, right? But he wouldn't be able to. So I think I'll end it here. I think I might have messed up on the teams with Yuarashi. It was Froppy, Orsuyu, Ida, and Kiroshima. But I think I might have said some other guy. I think I might have put too many people on his team. I'm not sure. So if I did, please, forgive me for that. But yeah. Next, what if it's going to be what if Deku had a stand as a quirk? So it's not going to follow the normal stand rules. It's going to be like Dark Shadow but different. And yeah, it's going to be D4C. That's the stand. That's what one person in my comments suggested. So yeah, if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll make the second parts to Raph. What if Deku had the Raph stay in Majin Buu's power? So yeah.